More TEW booking alongside with the Dark Side of the Ring companion. We're going to be doing the Dark Side of Bam Bam Bigelow today, the Beast from the East. Um, as you see here, he's been in my company for a little bit. Yeah, spent over a year with us. He's been being managed by Paul Heyman. We just tweaked his gimmick to freshen it up a little bit. Yeah, Bam Bam's 27. He's got red hot momentum, and he's quite popular. Big man with a lot of speed, as we'll see. Checking out his documentary here. But yeah, for this first event, I've already got Bam Bam scheduled to go over Snuka in the post show, because I wanted to get him on the card, but I did have a lot of other stuff going on. So as y'all remember, Born Again, Matt Bourne was kidnapped by the Kevin Sullivan's stable, the Dark Brotherhood, and brought, backstage and off screen, in between the weeks, we saw, or I told you, informed you that he's being sacrificed and rebranded as Born Again. So, Born Again Matt Bourne is going to go in and interrupt his old tag team partner, and that will be his first on-screen appearance. Right after that, he's going to be part of an official coronation type situation where Sullivan and Adonis and the Destroyer all come out and welcome him into the family. And then Kevin Sullivan's going to go up against Dusty Rhodes and win on that front as well. So, an action-packed show here tonight, but also here on the broadcast. So let's get it started.
Look at this man.
Pretty good match.
I'm telling you, ladies, send your kids out of the room because I want you to take a look at Bam Bam Bigelow.
There's no one who doesn't know Bam Bam Bigelow. And if they don't know his name, if they see the face and the head, they know it.
His entire head
Good
was
for
aflame.
Bockwinkel.
So he started doing the flames on his suits and his boots, and you'd look out into the audience and the flame everywhere.
Bam! Oh, wow!
He was just massive, but so athletic, so quick.
Bammer did it almost like a ballet dancer.
Bigelow can move for a big man, and he knows what he's doing in there.
Look at this 400-pound man doing flips, cartwheels, and going through the ring. This is crazy.
In his time in the 80s, nobody was like him. Like, this isn't right. It wasn't just Rookie of the Year, it was Phenomenon of the Year.
Bam Bam Bigelow!
Arriving on the scene like a force of nature, Bam Bam Bigelow catapulted to the top of the wrestling world and never looked back.
You need a little excitement?
When you've been on top in WWE and then you on tippity top in ECW, they beat the fuck out of each other.
Wrestling rewarded Bam Bam's talents with money and fame.
Mick
but those
Foley
rewards came with a heavy
head and
price.
shoulders
All
above the
wear and tear,
competition.
and you're not gonna feel it right away, but it's coming.
And that's when it changed, and everything spiraled out of control.
Nice.
You're selling your body, you're selling your health to have fame, fortune, and everything that goes with
A
it.
98,
People had
y'all.
mouths to
A
feed.
98.
So guys did
Wow.
what they had to do to earn their living.
He was in pain, and there was a doctor involved that was willing to take that away,
Nice.
and things went downhill from there.
But Bam Bam's addictions eventually pushed him beyond the point of redemption, destroying everything he loved.
A trusted professional gave him the thing that was his biggest demise. This doctor could have had a loaded machine gun to our family, and it would have been no different. No different.
So, just digging through the vast archives, we have Dad's calendar. And then if you go to November 15th, 1987, he got married. And then, not even taking a honeymoon, like he had a day off, and then he was in Des Moines, Iowa. This is literally the first 4 days of his career with the WWF in 1987.
He definitely wanted kids right away. He was like, I just want to stay home and raise the kids. You could go to work, go to school, do what you want to do. And he was more excited about being a dad than he
Steve
was
Austin a promo.
when he got WrestleMania. Hi, I'm Dana Breckenridge. I was married to Bam Bam Bigelow. And when Richie came, I mean, that was the best thing ever, because all he ever really wanted was a daughter.
Still waiting
yeah,
on
he's
few
a giant teddy bear.
folks.
What fans saw in the ring was not at all what we saw at home. It was love, it was playing around. My name is Richie Bigelow, and my father is Bam Bam Bigelow. He had this giant, giant bed that we would all cuddle up in and just jump around. Yeah, it was a great time.
When you think of your dad, what's the first memory that comes to mind?
It was the last time I saw him. We were just driving in the car, and I was 2 or 3 years old, but I remember seeing his head slowly drop to his chest and then come back up. And whenever I think back on how I went about the situation, I'm always so baffled because I was so young. But in some way, I understood that we were in some sort of danger. And as a toddler, I went into panic mode. I gotta go to the bathroom, I gotta get out, Daddy, pull over, I can't. So he pulled over on the side of the road, and he looked at me and gave me this big toothless smile. He's like, come on, like, do you have to go? Like, it was just on the side of the road, and I was like, no, but kind of stalling. And then we just got back on the road, and it started happening again. This time we were by a diner, and we pulled into that diner, and the next thing I know, my car door was opened, and a man just scooped me up and put me in the back of this gray car. And from the back seat, I watched them take my dad in handcuffs across. That was it. My mom came and picked me up, and she was real gentle about it. And she told me, you're probably not going to be seeing Daddy anymore. He needs help. And that was the last time I saw him.
He wanted to be a wrestler, but he wanted to be a father more. And everything was taken away. So was wrestling what took it away, or was Scott and all the other outside influences what took it away? Like, how did this happen?
Here we go. This is Dad, his sophomore year in high school.
Oh my God.
Right? They were Class A North champions, 20-6. That's probably the last time you'll see him with hair.
Everything around Asbury Park is Bruce Springsteen. The sound of Bruce Springsteen is everywhere and in everything that we did when we grew up on the shore. Scott was a street kid from Neptune who hung out in the bars of Asbury, you know, driving the circuit in muscle cars. For our age and our crowd, he was definitely the man. You know what? He was probably the kindest, most genuine person of the group. We were friends, and it was just a progression, and then it was a whirlwind. We were street kids. Nobody thought about where they were going. I didn't go to college. My friends didn't go to college. He didn't go to college.
God, the Jersey Shore was like the party place to be. I was running a club called Club Xanadu in Asbury Park, New Jersey. The club is actually 1 block from the Stone Pony. And in the middle was this place called Quack Quack. It's DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, and I know Bam Bam because I'm from the Jersey Shore. I roll into the Quack Quack, and I see this mammoth kid. And at some point, you know, we're doing shots, and we just kind of clicked, you know, but I think he was 17 at the time, but no one cared because he looked like a full-grown man. He was, you know, 300-plus pounds, and he could obviously be very menacing, but he also had that fun side to him. And they were calling him the Beast from the East back then.
He was a football player, and he was ranked in the state for wrestling. I mean, he was feared on the mat and on the football field.
This was the time when heavyweight in high school wrestling was unlimited. So you're talking about a 320-pound teenager who can bench 500 pounds walking onto a mat. I'm Shane Bigelow, and my father's Bam Bam Bigelow. I heard a story from a high school wrestling coach that my father rolled his ankle real bad and he couldn't wrestle, but his coach was just like, Scotty, I need you to just go up there and just look mean. So he gets up, he steps on the scale, he turns to the kid and he just gives him this big flex and just like, I'm coming for you. Lo and behold, this kid is shitting his pants. So he tells his coach, I'm not wrestling this guy, he's gonna rip my fucking head off. All my father had to do, he hopped out on one leg, got his hand raised, and took the win.
Yeah, there was a group of the boys, and they were rough drinking, tattooed, like old sailors, but not sailors, they were roofers. And they were very infamous around town.
Him and his brothers used to jump off of billboards onto mattresses on the side of the road. When my grandmother would drive past, she'd be like, oh, look at those kids. And then she'd realize that it was her 3 boys jumping onto like 5 mattresses piled high.
Scott was very quiet. You know, he was the baby of the bunch. They usually only called him in when they needed the extra muscle.
Ed heard he got in a fight, he bit some kid's ear off. It's like, what? But it's part of the legend that went with the beast from the East.
Tough dude, ran with rugged people. He was all that in a bag of chips, man. He was a bad apple when he wanted to be. I am Taz, former ECW World Heavyweight Champion and former opponent of Bam Bam Bigelow.
Bam Bam Bigelow all over Taz.
I've heard all the stories about Bigelow, and I believe them all.
There's a whole separate legend before the legend Bam Bam Bigelow ever became the legend. My name is Scott Colton Bigelow, and Bam Bam Bigelow is my father. I know that he was a bounty hunter for a short stint. I don't know much about the backstory of it.
I guess I was about 18, 19 years old. You see an ad for bounty hunter, and basically just picked up bail jumpers, beat up a lot of people, and then wind up going to Mexico to get a little girl that was kidnapped.
He was supposedly commissioned to go and bring back a young girl who was taken out of the country.
In the whole Mayday and craziness of the thing, his bounty hunting partner ends up getting shot in the neck and killed. And that's when my dad spent 6 months in a Mexican prison.
I heard he ended up in jail, Mexico, So you just hear little bits and pieces. And with Scotty, they could be exaggerated.
The story is he befriended the judge because he used to run through the walls that were made out of like the terracotta clay. He used to just break through the cells of the walls so they couldn't keep him in. So the judge one day apparently goes to him and asks him, he goes, I need security from all these cartel, mob, whatever guys. So you stand in front of me and you stop these maniacs from like lunging at me and trying to kill me, and I'll knock your sentence down. So the story is that a judge took pity on my father because my father saved him from a bunch of guys trying to jump over and stab him, and he ended up letting him loose early.
He's basically a New Jersey legend. There's a story that one night, house is on fire, he's driving by, runs in and saves some kids.
He pulled over, ran in the house and saved the kids. That sounds like a TV movie. It doesn't sound like stuff that really happens, and there were a lot of stories like that, just out there floating around. I'm Shane Douglas, and I had the pleasure of being partners in the triple threat with Bam Bam Bigelow.
Who's the world champion?
As I'd heard that he got arrested, I guess, in Mexico. That sounds implausible. Then, like, over years, you'd hear other people repeating these stories and just elevated that legend that was Bam Bam.
Getting out of the joint, there's no jobs, So I was bouncing, partying, hanging out with the boys.
Here comes Bam Bam in the club. This is like 81-ish, and it's packed, and my club was nice. And I see Bam roll in with like 3 of his biker buddies, and I come rolling up behind him, put my arm around his back. I'm like, yo, Bammer, like, no trouble in here tonight, right, bro? Oh, come on, Paige, I wouldn't do that to you. And at some point, we're at the bar, I got the guys a shot, and wrestling comes up. And, I said, I tried that in '79. He goes, you tried wrestling? I said, but I had 3 matches. My 3rd match, I hurt my knee, and I kind of got swept away by the booze, the broads, and the party. But talking to him about it, I'm like, dude, you're a natural. He goes, that would be a pie in the sky dream for me.
It just got to the point where, well, where's my life gonna go? I don't have a college education. My gift was being athletically inclined, and so I went to a wrestling school, which was Larry Sharp's school in Munster Factory at the time. The rest is history.
So Larry Sharp was a former amateur wrestler who opened up the Monster Factory. My name's Dave Meltzer. I'm the editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and I've been covering pro wrestling since 1971. And one day, I guess Bam Bam walked in the door, and Larry...
All right, y'all. We got a special treat tonight. Bam Bam Bigelow versus the one and only Dusty Rhodes. In my company, Bam Bam he's a monster. Not someone to be fucked with. Kind of like they were talking about, all those things in this database actually happened because it starts in '86. So he's been in the Mexican prison. He's done all that, been all there. DDP's talking to him right now about getting into the business. So, the man beast. He's doing really well with that gimmick. Paul Heyman's doing some great mic work. And yeah, we're going to go up against Dusty Rhodes, the Dude, Dusty. I should have started him with a blue collar gimmick. I don't know why I did the Dude. I thought it might be just something new that we could add to the Dusty Rhodes lore, where he played like a more chill dude. But you know, it didn't work out great. We're probably gonna switch it up. But yeah, that's the story tonight. Is Bam Bam's coming out here because he's mad that he was on the post show, whereas Dusty was, you know, able to make the main show against Kevin Sullivan. He lost to Sullivan. Now he's going to lose to Bam Bam. Bam Bam feels like he doesn't deserve that main spot. He's an old timer. He's past his prime. And Bam Bam's the new, young, up-and-coming man beast.
He saw, like everyone did, money.
And he became Scott's manager.
46,
set him up on a
solid
couch,
for your first
threw him in
ever
the
promo.
ring, and trained him.
I wind up staying out there at the Monster Factory, living out there, basically eating it, living it, sleeping it for a year.
I saw footage of him coming out of the Monster Factory.
Michael
You
Hayes
could
was
tell,
superb without
his
his foot.
aptitude to learn how to do this and get better at this,
Eric
his
Bischoff was weak.
athleticism. It jumped out to me right away. I mean, seeing a guy like that, you know, a guy that
That's a
big,
show opener right
you know,
there.
do a cartwheel, I was like, wow, he's super impressive.
For Scott, professional wrestling is like a double-edged sword. It gave him life and it took his life. That's the ultimate double edge, isn't it?
In 1985, Scott Bigelow was on the brink of stardom, having made a clean break from a troubled past.
80.
When he went to the Monster Factory with Larry Sharp,
Woo!
Larry really developed the
pretty good.
name
That's pretty
Bam
good.
Bam. With Scott, Bam Bam, the strong baby face. You're like Bam Bam from the Flintstones. So
Yes.
he became Bam Bam Bigelow.
Probably the most handsome wrestler on the face of the earth.
The massive head of Bam Bam and that big flame ball on that head, that tattoo. Who gets ink on their head has got to be crazy. Nevertheless, their whole head, for those that never got a tattoo, they hurt as much as they think, okay? This guy got his skull tattooed. Just imagine how much pain and how many hours that took to do. This was the branding of Bam Bam Bigelow.
See, people love to hate. And as long as they want to hate me, I know I'm doing my job.
And it kind of just sent that message to the fans and to other wrestlers. That's a bad dude right there.
And Bam, do you have anything to say about all this?
I'm hungry.
Despite being a rookie to the wrestling scene, those with an eye for the business see Bam Bam's incredible potential, especially soon-to-be
This is
industry
not very
pioneer
good.
Paul Heyman.
In this
Paul
database.
was doing wrestling
isn't.
magazines.
I don't
at the
think he
time.
was really that
This
great in
before
life.
He was actually running around the business as a manager, and in his magazines he was always promoting Bam Bam Bigelow like this phenomenon. And the guy never even had a match. Paul worked at Studio 54. He was doing publicity at the
Awesome.
time,
It's time to
and he
heal.
got this, you know, gig, Bam Bam Bigelow's first match. And I looked at it and I was just like, oh my God, this guy's like 380 pounds and he's coming off the top rope. At that point, you know, I'm going like, this guy's gonna be like it in wrestling. Like he's gonna be the biggest thing.
I was like 19 when we started dating, and I was with his brother and a couple other friends, and we went to his show, and he got up there and he wrestled, and they were just in awe of what it all was. I just was like, oh, you know, he's at work. I didn't really know too much about it until the WWF came knocking.
At some point, I'm running another really big club in 86-ish. And I'm flicking the channels, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing wrestling. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Bigelow.
Take a good look, because we're bringing him from one end of the world to the other.
Next thing I know, he's with Hulk Hogan. He's in the WWF. And I'm like, oh my God.
From Asbury Park, New Jersey,
He made it.
Bam Bam Bigelow!
Not only is Bam Bam headed to the WWF, but he's coming in with the full support of company owner Vince McMahon.
WWF brought him in and, you know, they tried to make him into the next big thing. You know, they did the thing where all the managers were bidding on him to make him extra special.
I'm here to introduce Bam Bam Bigelow.
Vince loved big guys, and now you've got the most agile, 380-pound guy.
You've got Rey Mysterio Jr., Davey Boy Smith, and
tag team partner to
Jake Roberts all signing today.
And he was going to main event there, and he was going to work with the top guys.
I think Ray's the only one that'll be directly to the main
Hulk
roster.
Hogan was the one that really took me.
The other guys
okay,
have time.
This is the business.
Left
this
at
is how we
WWE.
do it. This is serious.
He signed the WWE contract, and we got married November 15th, 1987, and he went on the road November 16th, 1987.
How did he propose to you?
We were watching TV, and he was like,
"Want to get married?"
And I was like, "Okay." And that was basically it. There was no fanfare. I saw him 10 times a year. I don't even know. Maybe that's why the marriage lasted so long. Maybe that's why I don't have anything bad to say. He was on the road and hit the ground running, and it was on from there.
I got
Back in the early days with WWF.
Surprise.
You know, we were working 60 days in a row, and main event in front of a sold-out crowd every night, and on the weekends we'd do 2 shows. So it's life in the fast lane.
It's the only offer, Bam Bam.
When he was home, you know, he did regular things. So he remained very humble. Scott was who he was around here. But, you know, it was cool to see him on TV. He was in the first Nintendo game. Like I said, he was just breaking into the business, and he worked and he provided. He knew to take advantage of that situation and take advantage of everything that was given to him.
What a monster!
Everybody that gets a pair of boots and tights wants to be the world champion, right? And they think they're ready for it yesterday. For me, it was 11 years before I saw a world title. So when I did get that belt, I understood the responsibility that went with it. So I would think that Bam Bam being thrown that quickly into main events with, you know, Hulk Hogan or one of these massive names, it would have been intimidating.
He never had to crawl his way up. There's always going to be jealousy, especially when you've been in the business 15 years and he's been in the business for 2 or 1, and he's on the top of the card.
He was young, and these guys were big, and it was George the Animal Steel and King Kong Bundy, and it was just people that he always saw on TV, and all of a sudden he's standing in the middle of the ring in the Survivor Series, and the older guys were like, you know what, you need to step in line.
The 8th Wonder up!
I remember there was an Andre match. Of course, Andre the Giant was the biggest man you'll ever see. Andre got him in the ring up against the ropes and wrapped the rope around his neck. Scott was like, he's gonna fucking kill, he's gonna kill me.
Andre tried to kill me in Madison Square Garden. He picked me up and he tried choking me out, and I was going, oh God, don't go out, don't go out. Madison Square Garden main event sold out.
Yeah.
You can't pass out.
Look out! Even Bam Bam looks small next to this guy.
Andre thought I was just a kid, thought I was getting too cocky or whatever. You know, he was laying him in.
Stamina. I might
So,
actually
you know, Andre, he was on top of him and he was pounding on him.
Get the
I mean,
Sarge.
hard. It was a bad night at the office for Bam Bam Bigelow.
And Andre said something to him like, young boy, you know, you're a little green for us. Like, this is how it works. Like, you're gonna learn. And Andre really just stuck it to him. But, you know, they were just letting him know he had to pay his dues. He was green, and you need to wait your turn, because it's not right now.
After only a year in the big leagues, Bam Bam Bigelow's match with Andre the Giant marks his exit from the WWF.
He'd gotten such a big push, but at a certain point, they did sour on him.
Bam Bam Bigelow paid the price here.
And it may have been ego-wise, the other guys not liking him.
And my father just knowing when things getting a little too thick and it's not his time, he moved on.
Now on his own, Bam Bam travels the country working for various U.S. promotions before receiving a lucrative offer to wrestle in Japan.
I don't even know what years these are, but judging by the suit, probably early 90s. This is one of his original Japanese suits. There was more money for him to be had overseas.
They offered me a lot of money to go
Let's
work.
try.
I was working with Antonio Inoki. There was a lot of talent there.
When he went to Japan, he was on for 2 weeks and then home for 2 weeks. So he had longer stretches of time home.
What sparked his return to WWF?
A contract, and it was time for him to come back to the
4
States.
years,
I
huh?
guess in his meeting with Vince, you know, they worked a deal that he felt comfortable and he was a little bit more mature and he was ready to come back.
All right, man. So what do you got here?
So this is his coming out to the ring attire when he was in his second run in the WWF. He would have pyrotechnics underneath here, and they would shoot like fireworks out. I don't fill it out as much as he did. He said he used to look like a tulip in it.
In 1992, as the WWF struggles with declining popularity, Vince McMahon brings Bam Bam back to the roster. Once again proving to be a top-level star, Bam Bam gets thrust into the main event of WrestleMania 11.
WrestleMania 11.
When McMahon books him against one of the NFL's most celebrated players.
Lawrence Taylor, probably the most media-frenzied time of my father's career.
That was Scott's idol, like LT and the Giants. Like, now I'm gonna wrestle him, you know, I'm gonna wrestle with him.
That build-up and that whole pomp and circumstance of being the main event in WrestleMania.
Lawrence Taylor, just me and you.
This was a match not for wrestling fans.
The media hype around this match has been absolutely huge.
This was a match for the general public. And the idea was by being in the match, all the exposure from the football press and the mainstream press would then make Bam Bam's name bigger, so then he could be the big star that they wanted him to be.
That means I'm here. I did it. I am the 1%. Every little boy wants to be a WWE wrestler, almost every little boy. And he was main event. It was a paycheck bigger than a lot of people make in 1 year.
I see a lot of videos online. People, oh, it's the worst WrestleMania. You know what? There's not another person that could have carried Lawrence Taylor to do that show.
Business was down. Vince needed to hit a home run, and they picked me because I'm the only guy that could take chicken shit, turn it into chicken salad.
You know, Vince trusted my father enough to be the person to pull that off.
Bam Bam soon learns that being the company's go-to big man comes with certain sacrifices.
The only problem working for Vince McMahon is that if you get hurt, there's no sympathy there. He wants you to work. It's really hard to do because your body can't take that type of punishment.
It definitely took a toll on his body.
I mean, every time he sits in a chair and stands up, he just squatted 400 pounds. A lot of wear and tear on your knees, your back, your neck, your shoulders.
I mean, the thing that made him so great was, you know, an agile big guy. The problem with the agile big guys is that by doing that stuff, a smaller guy can take that stuff longer, and a big guy, it starts wearing down on you a lot.
He definitely had some knee surgeries and an elbow surgery or shoulder surgery. You know, his body was starting to take a little bit of a licking. That's one thing I didn't do. I didn't worry and I didn't stress out. It was his job, and he was an entertainer and he was an athlete, and I was too young to think about the lifelong lasting effects of wrestling and what it would have on his body and his mind. But I do know that he knew if he was out and he was injured too long, somebody was gonna step up and replace him, so that was a no-no.
I'm not letting the opportunity walk by me. That heavyweight championship is gonna be mine.
He's got multiple injuries at this point. How's he dealing with that?
Probably pain pills like everybody else, but I do remember, you know, that was so commonplace among wrestlers then.
It was such a part of the scene that it wasn't like a big deal. And it was like, hey, D, you got any Vikes? So you just gave them to your boy, you know, because he needed them right there.
When you see this symbol, you can be assured of drug-free entertainment you can be proud of.
Vince tested for marijuana and performance-enhancing drugs, but you've got a prescription, you're good.
Through that 80s and then into the 90s, there were two things that coincided. Running, if this is the wrestling industry, running right next to that is the pharmaceutical industry. And the pharmaceutical industry is now coming up with better, more accessible opiates. OxyContin, which I did have a problem with.
I've seen it so much in my career. So many of my peers during that time just left us way too early because of addiction, especially pain pills.
He was diabetic, and he had an endocrinologist, not a pain management doctor. And he would call, and I need perks, I need Vikes, I need Oxys. I need something to keep me going.
If you were at the pool party and old Doc came by, well, I happen to have a refillable script of OxyContins in return for autographs or, you know, tickets to local shows here and there. It's a pretty powerful thing to have over someone.
They might as well have just put heroin in a bottle and called it Oxycontin. I can guarantee you, before that prescription was done, he was probably addicted.
The Road Warriors, man, they're worth so much money.
In 1995,
Holy
after a
shit.
3-year run with the WWF, Bam Bam Bigelow leaves the company to sign with the notorious hardcore wrestling promotion ECW, run by his old friend, Paul Heyman.
I mean, the one reason he went to ECW was because he liked how it was local. Obviously, if he was in Asbury, the whole family would get together and we'd all go.
And he knew he had a commodity. You know, he didn't take his character off. It was tattooed on his head. So wherever he went, Bam Bam Bigelow was going.
There is only one Bam Bam Bigelow.
I think it was a little too hardcore for me being so young.
Our fans were riding with us. That was the whole gimmick. We were renegades, well, damn it. We the fans, we're renegades too.
From fit to finish, those shows were chaos. Well, I remember this crowd just like a mosh pit. And this dude who is drunk as a skunk comes barreling and just absolutely face punches me and trucks me right into the ground. I'm like 10, 11 years old. Like, I've never been hit by a grown man. And it's that type of like, where you're like, you can't catch your breath. So I remember going backstage, and I don't even think I told my father anything. He just like saw it. And he's like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know, this guy punched me, like went through the crowd. He's like, find him.
The gentleman who did that was escorted to the back for a conversation. I witnessed this quasi-conversation. I'll never forget it.
And all you hear is, so you want to hit kids? And you know that like, this dude is getting the life smacked out of him.
I don't know how else to put it.
Never seen again.
It was very bad.
Very
It's
bad.
okay now.
But the
Very
fans
bad.
in turn are fueled by ECW's over-the-top, ultraviolet brand of extreme wrestling.
In ECW, we were a bunch of wrestlers that most of the bigger promotions, they didn't want us, kinda, and we were like the land of misfit toys, and incorporated a lot of new stuff into pro wrestling in a revolutionary way. I mean, you had to be tough to be in our company, and Bigelow was a very tough guy, a legitimate guy, and he really started to come into his own amongst what we were doing.
The stuff that these guys were doing, jumping off the rafters, through tables, getting thrown into the stands, it's just as hardcore can get.
We weren't just trying to hurt each other. We were professionals. What happens in that ring is built on trust. So, the infamous Taz and Bigelow go through the ring in Asbury Park. So I get this phone call from Paul Heyman, and he says, you and Bigelow, he's gonna beat you for the belt, and he's gonna put you through the ring to do it. He goes, what do you think? And the first thing I thought is, I'm gonna die. So the way a ring is constructed, it's a steel frame, and then there's these thick wood boards, and then there's kind of like a cushion. It's not as big as a mat, and then a canvas. So these wood boards will cut first, so then the boards would just be moved out of the way, then open the trap door. And Bam Bam was concerned. What about Taz's head? Like, his head's gonna hit the frame of this thing. How are we gonna clear this hole? I almost feel dirty explaining this on air. I'm so old school, like, it's like fucking like unbelievable. So basically, we fought. We were outside the ring for quite some time fighting until we get the signal that this door is open.
They've got both champion and challenger back in the ring.
So if you watch closely,
He's got it! He's got it locked up!
when I have the choke on, and I'm really pulling it back this curtain all the way here, right? So Bam Bam, he's tapping first, and then he puts his hand on the top rope. Under his hand is a little piece of white tape. That white tape was the measurement to clear my head. We hit that crash mat hard as hell. The ring engulfs us, and we heard the people. My eyes lit up. I was so happy. And the first thing he says to me, are you okay? That's Bam Bam Bigelow. And he goes, we fucking did it. And we were laughing because the place was rumbling. He waited for the people to come down a teeny bit, and then once they saw him come out first, we knew the pop would be loud, but I don't know if we knew it was gonna be that loud. I mean, it was just I'll never forget it as long as I live. I got goosebumps.
I mean, there's so many things that could have gone wrong. You could break your back, you could break your neck, but Scotty never, ever said no to anything.
It's a small miracle that Bigelow is moving.
ECW was definitely extreme. I'm just surprised nobody died. I am really surprised nobody died.
You would see him come out, he'd have, giant gashes on his head, and he would just put some super glue on it, close it up, and then we would go have a cheesesteak.
I can't tell you how many times he's been sewed up in our living room. Doctor just would come over and just sew him up in the middle of the night while he was half asleep. So the injuries were the beginning of the end.
He had stenosis in the entirety of his spine. He had crushed discs. He had sections fused of his back at that time. You could run your finger down his spine and you could feel almost like Braille. Pills just allowed him to move.
If you didn't go out and you didn't put on a show, you weren't getting paid. So I understand the aspect of having to take something to basically push you through that.
I did see Bigelow struggling a little bit physically, but he hit it well. He wouldn't tell you if you had to go for a match, hey dude, I'm hurting here, my shoulder hurts, my neck hurts, my back hurts. He was just, let's go, let's do it, whatever it was.
The pain pills Bam Bam Bigelow consumes allow him to continue performing at the highest level, but they also take a toll on his life away from the ring.
He was never, never, never aggressive, and he was always very respectful, and he became angry. He would at times be very coherent and at times be very incoherent, and he would be like, you're just crazy and you're making things up. I'm under a doctor's care, and this is, what I have to do to be in the business. It was a doctor, an MD, who got paid a lot of money to treat him for one disease and gave him a whole nother one.
The pill bottles from that doctor, I've never seen pill bottles that size in my life before. 100 pills, 300 pills.
This doctor was a fan, and he would have done anything that Scott wanted, regardless of his license, and he did. Scott was in denial, and so was the doctor, because I would call him and say, stop writing these prescriptions, you're destroying our lives, you're ruining our family.
And that doctor's response, he would call my father and say that the warden's calling me, telling me not to come over. Undermining my mother to my father in an already weakened state.
Nobody's paying attention to these doctors. You're a drug dealer, because he was not a pain doctor. It's a tragedy. Scott sold his soul for OxyContins. And he would have stepped over us in the street to get them.
Damn.
Bam Bam Bigelow's addiction continues to get worse, fueled by an endless supply of OxyContin from his doctor.
OxyContin is one of America's new wonder drugs.
Since the drug came on the market, the number of annual prescriptions has risen to nearly 6 million.
Contributing to the problem are pill mills, where doctors write prescriptions for non-medical reasons.
He wasn't going to buy drugs off the street. He was home taking OxyContins. And then I got pregnant with Richie, and then the promises, this is going to be different, we're going to get through this. I think he tried to pull himself together because he said he always wanted a daughter his whole life. It was like beyond anything to have this daughter. And when she was little, he used to put her to bed every single night, and he would get a pillow and he would lay on the floor next to her and he would sing her songs and hold her hands. And he was in her room on her floor every night.
Sweet.
Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, my dad would pick me up from preschool, big red truck, eat all the Doritos you can imagine, paint pictures, just normal father-daughter relationship.
When he was around, he was focused on being with us and spending time with us.
What are you doing, boy?
His body was a little hindered and he was starting to feel the pain, but that didn't stop us from going to every opening day for fishing, every opening day for hunting. He got to be a dad, and without being on the road 300 plus days a year, those are the fondest memories. There's no pension in professional wrestling, so he needed to make as much money as he could with the body that he had because he knew it was deteriorating. He even says that he's the highest paid loser in the world because he'll take a loss as long as that loss pays.
I'm the guy who helped bring Bam Bam in to WCW. When he heard that I was wrestling, Somehow he got my number. He's like, dude, you're doing it. Like, we grew up maybe 7 miles from each other. These two Jersey Shore boys, but now we're tag team champions. I'd never felt like he was under the influence in the ring, but eventually, people start to go back to their old habits, and that's why so many guys died. Overconsumption of pills. Because when you're taking 5 at a time, because 3 stopped working, you can't remember if you took them or not, so you take 5 more, and before you know it, you're that guy.
He went on the road, and he would not show up to shows or tapings. He was in Arizona, and friends of ours were there, and he didn't make it to the show, and they called home, and I was like, what do you mean? He's there. Got to the point where he was a liability, and that's what they said. And they paid him the rest of his contract to stay home because he could not function.
I saw a man broken. He's away from his family, and he's not in the best physical shape because he's in constant pain, having to take a pill just to get up, and not just a pill, multiple pills. But the trade-off of that is it completely dulls your senses. It completely just destroys your sense of person.
How many pills do you think he was taking a day?
15, 20 Oxycontins, easily.
A day?
Yeah.
It was dangerous. And a situation happened with the youngest where it became very dangerous.
I had wrote a paper about it when I was in 8th grade, and I went back and read it last night, understanding that what was happening is I'm writing about my father nodding out, driving. And when I wrote that in 8th grade, I had no idea that's what was going on. And I remember the officers were asking me all these questions, like, for a 3-year-old, they're asking me my address, my phone number, my mom's phone number, like all this information, and I'm
hoping for a 90, but
I don't know, where's my dad? So when I went back last night and read it, really knowing what was going on, what was in his system, it just hits 10 times harder.
As Bam Bam Bigelow's addiction sends him crashing to rock bottom, he's charged with endangering the welfare of his daughter.
He was given an ultimatum. I'm like, you've either got to go get help or you have to go. He wouldn't get help, and he went. He didn't see that he had a problem the way that he did, the way that addicts do.
Dad's not gonna be home anymore. They're getting a divorce. That's when he picked up and basically went to Florida.
He was married to a drug. So to watch a man who would choose that over his children, when I knew that that was the most important thing, was just the worst thing ever.
I got to talk to him on the phone, but it would be like spans of where it would be really quiet because I could hear him crying. He was struggling to form the words, I
went down to Tampa, spring break, my senior year. I wanted to go down there to see my friends, but I really just wanted to go down there to find my dad. And his girlfriend answered the phone, said he wasn't available at the point in time. And then I got a phone call when I landed back in New Jersey from my father apologizing. And, I kind of aired him out a little bit, told him how I felt. And then he died 3 weeks later.
Damn.
I was in school teaching, and a phone call got patched to my classroom, and it was his brother, Todd, and Todd said, he's gone. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, he's gone, and he was crying hysterically, and I just hung up the phone and ran out of the building, and Shane was in college.
Yeah, I got that call. I'll never forget. I'm walking back through the quad. There's kids going to class, and I got a phone call from my father's childhood friend. Your father died last night. And it's just like everybody around you is moving fast and you're just still. I just remember being numb.
It rocked me. What I heard. At that time, he was, going through a tough time.
I thought of his family instantly, because I know how much he loved his family and his wife. I just felt for him.
He died of an overdose, accidental overdose, but the word accidental and overdose should just not be in the same sentence. How do you accidentally, oops, took one too many? Took one too many for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
On January 19th, 2007, at just 45 years of age, Bam Bam Bigelow dies by what authorities call an accidental overdose from a cocktail of illicit and prescription drugs.
I didn't grieve. There was none for me because I was scrambling. I had kids. They couldn't see me break down. They couldn't see me weak. And that's all I became, was a provider. Like, I didn't have time to coddle and nurture. That's the hardest part on me now.
Towards the end, it was very difficult with my mother, just because that was my dad, that was my hero.
My mom had to make a really tough decision. You know, for a while I never understood why we couldn't just go see Dad. And when you don't understand, you just think it's selfish. But then when you do, you become appreciative that you weren't exposed to something that would have been just so heartbreaking.
As a father, I think it digs into you that when you think, if there was no compunction for Bammer to reach out for some kind of help, that he must have thought that he had it under control. He must have figured this is not really a problem because of how much he talked about his kids.
It's been just honoring the legacy of Bam Bam.
Now collision course.
I never really got to stop and acknowledge my own pain.
You always think about, if you had one last chance, what you would say. I think there's more ask, which is why.
His kids lost their dad at a young age. It's sad, you know, because Bigelow, like so many of us wrestlers during that time, was on the road a lot. You know, you're not around. You're making a living for your family.
If Scott was here, what would you say to him?
You motherfucker. But through years of therapy, I know you had no control. It's not your fault. I don't blame you. You know, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm gonna be a drug addict today. You wake up every morning and you're like, today's gonna be a change. Fine. But I would call him a motherfucker first. Just because he would expect that.
I can't fault him for what happened. You had to keep going. That's how you put the bread on the table.
I signed all the rights over to the kids, so they got all the royalty checks. So he, in his death, still supported them.
As far as being a big man, who's better than Bam Bam?
Nobody. There's nobody.
The best big man in the business. The guy that was doing cartwheels, moonsaults, drop kicks, and things that they never ever seen another big man do before. That's what I want to be remembered as.
When I think of pro wrestling, I think of power, I think of size, I think of my father.
World Heavyweight Champion, the Beast from the East, Bam Bam!
He was a great person, and how he lived and all the wonderful things that he did for people and the great father that he was should be what is remembered. Not how he died, because that's a terrible story, but he left such a legacy.
Bam Bam! Look at that maneuver!
He was that 1%.
He was. He was indeed. Here we are with the final installment of what is going to be Bam Bam Bigelow, Dark Side of the Ring. So, I didn't describe a whole lot of why he was in the last match. Really, it's just we're seeing Bam Bam go on a tear. He's just tearing through the roster, as a monster does. So, this time, no pun intended, he's going to tear through Terry Gordy. And it's a Bam Bam versus Bam Bam match. So we got Bam Bam Bigelow versus Bam Bam Terry Gordy. That's what he was called, Terry Bam Bam Gordy. And yeah, they've had it before, but both times Terry has gone over Bigelow. This is the first time Bigelow's going to win. So it should be a good match. I just need to throw another match on this card so that we can move it along. But yeah. Thanks everybody for watching and checking it out. I saw we had a few people sliding in and out here, and we appreciate that. Let's see, we got a heel. Give me a face that hasn't been used in a little bit. January 1, Tom Zenk and the Warrior. Okay, yeah, let me use the Warrior here. Not too long. Nope, perfect. Okay. Hennig. DDLC argue. Let me move this one up. Oops. That's perfect. All right. Hennigan DiBiase's get a 97. Mike Rotundo versus the Warrior ends in 11 minutes after the Warrior defeats Rotundo with a big splash. Bam Bam versus Bam Bam brawl goes okay. Levy is defeated by Born again. Born again? No, I think that was their first match. Powerbomb. Bam Bam defeats Bam Bam. Terry Gordy was really off his game. Bam Bam had a better performance than Terry Gordy, which is pretty nice. Let's see. 81. Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton. Of course, they have great chemistry. Steiner Brothers. Defense number 10. Count them 10. And a 98. Look at that. That's what we love to see. Ted DiBiase. Great, excellent work there, Ted. Yeah. Submission by the $1 Million Dream. We love to see it. A 94 is strong. A 94 is great for us. And that's about 2 weeks of television, folks. We're building to something. We're building to the pay-per-view. Wow, WWF is a new champion, so that's interesting. But, yeah. I got a month left on Cablevision, 2 weeks remaining of AWA television, and after that, we're not going to do 2 shows a week. So we should be able to start kind of moving along here. I'm going to start investing more in the show that I do have. So once AWA is completed its run on ESPN, we're going to upgrade the production quality, and we're going to just run with the one show and the monthly events, and get a new deal here soon enough. But yeah, Austin's back. Good stuff. Nice. Bam Bam needs a break because he's been in like 4 wild brawls in a row. 3 wild brawls in a regular match. But that's okay because his Dark Side of the Ring's over. Join us next time. I believe next time I want to do the last of the Von Erichs, which is going to be a good one for sure. And we'll finally see if we have anything to do with the Von Erich boys. I got Chris and Carrie. I don't think I'm going to add any other ones just because David's already gone and Mike's not really worth hiring. But yeah, peace out, everyone. Thanks for watching, and looking forward to Tuesday. I think Tuesday will work this week to play some more. Peace out. Bye.